we have a special treat for us. We have Mrs. Grace Anderson with us, and she's going to be performing Bach. Sorry. Grace has performed Bach internationally, all over. She came into that, but some of these places include places like Carnegie Hall, as well as the Lincoln Center in New York City. I ran into Grace at the Bach lunch at the Starmount Presbyterian Center, which some of you guys might recognize her when she comes up, because I do recognize some familiar faces from the trip. But I'll go ahead and let her get into the program.
So I noticed the program entitled The Celebrated Bach Suites. So why are they so celebrated? So here I hope to share with you what makes me tick with Bach's cello music, because it's very much alive, despite the fact that it's so old, 300 years old, and that so many recordings have been done, right? So you could have just pushed Spotify, but here I am playing for you live. I wanted to share with you that when I met Hannah and Jane here, I was at Starmount down the street in Greensboro, performing in the Bach series. And that was, I think, March. And that was a concert that I had prepared for myself to play in order that I'm ready for my Germany tour. So since then, I have performed the Bach cello suites along with my colleague, Alan Black. We took 3 suites each, so we were able to complete all 6 of the cello suites in Germany. The tour that we went on was called Cellomania, in the footsteps of Bach. So we performed in 3 very historical places where Bach had worked. And we had tour guides that took us to where he fell in love, where he courted his first wife, and the second place where his first wife had died, and he found his second wife. And we worked for Prince Leopold, that was on Kuten, and I played there. And the highlight for me, just skipping to the end of the tour, was to have performed in Thomas Church. It's called Thomaskirche in Leipzig. And this is where Bach had held the final job, the post of Kapellmeister of the St. Thomas Boys Choir, which is well known these days. And Bach's tomb is right there too. So for Bach-feely people who love Bach, I encourage you to check out Leipzig in your Googling or in your lifetime. So I wanted to just share with you what I learned about Bach on this tour. I already knew a lot about him, but on this tour I really felt I got to know the man. So when we think about Bach, Bach's music, I don't know, what comes to mind? Organ, okay. Would you describe his music as serious? Or mathematical even? Or complex? But also transcendent, right? And so what I've learned about Bach was that this man was obsessed with completion. If he was tasked to write a cantata for a church service, he took those Lutheran hymns and he analyzed them inside out and decorated the words with as many possibilities as you can think of. When he was tasked to compose the Waltemperklavier for the piano, he wrote a prelude and fugue in every single key, sharps and flats, until he ran out of keys. And he was also the man that wrote for solo cello and solo violin, and that had never been done before. To take a cello instrument, which was really a complemental instrument up till then, and to explore all the possibilities. That was really earth-shattering for cellists. Well, I don't want to give too much away by telling you the whole story of the Bach suite, so let me do a little playing. Tonight's program, I'm going to play for you 2 complete Bach suites out of the 6. I'm playing prelude number 1. You probably know the prelude well if you listen to Yo-Yo Ma. I'll start with that one, and then halfway through, I'll talk a little bit more, and I'll continue with the suite number 3. So I'll narrate as I go. Here is suite number 1 in G major, starting with a prelude. concert, I would have played the suite all the way through. But I thought in the beginning to just narrate each movement with you so that you can follow my thinking as I go. So each suite has 6 movements. It's funny, we have 6 cello suites, each one with 6 movements, so that's 36 movements. So each suite begins with a prelude, which is an introduction of some sort. It enters your mind the key that we're in, and also shows you some of the key features of this suite. For example, you hear the string crossing, so you hear that again later on. So after the prelude, Bach goes into 5 different dances. The first one is an Allemande. It's in 4/4, so it's very square. It's a German dance. I like to think of this dance compared to the others, the heaviest. I think of the Germans and their steins of beer. And then the movement after that is called a courant. It's French. I think Korea is run, so it's a very lively, fast dance where it's in 3 beats and people are actually sliding across the floor. So I'll play these 2 movements next. Allemande and courant. Alright, so you've heard the three movements, so we're halfway through this suite. The next movement, I consider this the main dish, yeah, if you will. The next movement is called the saraband. It's a slow Spanish dance. It's in three, but the stress is on the second beat. So it's very flirtatious, right? First beat, the downbeat is usually the strong beat, as you can feel in the last dances. It's very easy to put your foot, to tap your feet on the right beat. But with the saraband, it's a little bit tricky. And I've learned that the saraband actually came from South America, and when it entered Spain, it was actually banned for some time because I think they thought this was not right. It's a lot of courting in this dance. So the saraband is followed by a set of minuets. Minuets are French dances in three, and you're going to hear them as a pair. And then we end the suite with a jig. guest, so my arms can grab onto the mic. Okay, so continuing on my Bach story and the Bach cello suites. So as you listen to the different movements along, you see a great deal of variety in the beats and everything. And people have all sorts of analogies for why they're organized the way they're organized. To me, all the Bach cello suites follow this format: the prelude, the German dance, the fast French one, where people are sliding across the floor, the Spanish one, the flirtatious one, followed by the minuet, the pair, and the jig at the end, so 6 movements. For me, it feels a little bit like a person's day. So if you have trouble memorizing the names of movements, which I have trouble with sometimes, I think of what my day would look like. The prelude is full of promise, right? It presents all the possibilities we're going to hear in a suite. Be it a downward scale or crossing the strings, it's very dramatic and virtuosic. So that's what my morning feels like when I have my coffee. And then the Allemand feels a little bit like, for me, 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, when I really hunker down and do my good work. Be it projects I'm trying to finish, or really practicing the cello and playing in tune. So that's what the Allemand is like, a little serious. And then we have the Courant, and that for me is sort of lunch hour, and everything that goes on, the rush of getting to lunch. And then you have the Sarabande, which, as you can tell, it's slower. So that's about 2 or 3 p.m., siesta hour for me. Then after the Sarabande, then you have the 2 more dances. The minuet is pretty lively, right, but not crazy. So that feels like a little bit like 5 p.m., where you finish your work and you're wrapping up the day, you feel good about your progress. And then we finish with a jig, which is a party, really. The jig for me is a gathering of people like this and celebrating life together. So in a way, I think Bach cello suites is that celebration of all parts, all facets of our daily lives. Okay, so continuing the Bach suites. So when we listen to these classical recordings, it's hard to appreciate the hands that these manuscripts have passed down to get down to us all these hundreds of years later. And did you know there is no Bach's manuscript of these works? They're lost. Yes. But we have 5 or 6 different sources. The best one that we use is by his second wife, Anna Magdalena, and her handwriting is pretty good, but she also had 10 kids to tend to, so she was not infallible. So we find mistakes here and there. And then we have Kellner, who was an organist at the time, and he actually adapted some of the cello words for organ, so he eliminated some things that would make sense on the cello, but not the organ. But long story short, as a performer, you're staring at these pages of ink, dry ink, and you're trying to make sense of which of these lines go across. So for us, if we have a slur across multiple notes, for us, that means you play those notes in the same bow direction. And it gives a sense of a continuity. For example, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I could have done that da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And so that's a little bit like punctuation, isn't it? When you have a lot of words and you're punctuating the wrong way, things can be very different. The good example I like to give is this book that came out about 10 years ago called Eats, Shoots, and Leaves. Have you come across this book? Yeah. And the idea, and on the cover is a panda bear. In front of the panda bear are some bamboo shoots. But if you have eats, comma, shoots, comma, and leaves, that could be scene of a crime. Someone who ate, shot someone, and left the scene. But here we're talking about panda bear who eats shoots and leaves. So for us, that's the importance of these punctuation and slur markings. So it's been a really interesting journey trying to figure out what Bach would have liked. Let's see. Oh, okay, very last piece of information before I get back to playing. Okay, so the Bach suites were written, they think, around 1720, plus or minus. This was the time that he was employed in Köthen in the So he was not obligated to write religious cantatas. So this is when Bach wrote most of his well-known instrumental works, including the Well-Tempered Clavier, the Goldberg Variations, the Brandenburg Concerto, and all the, let's see what else. Yeah, all the instrumental works, and the violin partitas and sonatas for solo violin. So, as I mentioned, the manuscript by Bach was lost to time, and after Bach passed away, one of his sons got a hold of copies of his music. Anyway, his cello suites were not played for nearly 200 years until Pablo Casals, the Spanish Catalonian cellist, came along, and Casals found them in a music shop in Barcelona. He was a 13-year-old cellist looking for gig music because he was playing in cafes and bars. And he wanted something for solo cello that was very portable, so he didn't have to depend on a pianist or a violinist to play with. And here he was, imagine, thumbing through the aisles and coming across the Bach suites. He had no idea Bach wrote cello suites. So that's how it all started. And he started playing them every day, so we know, for something like 15 years before he dared to play them in public, because he loved them so much and wanted to do them justice. And just a quick link to how Casals relates to me, my cello teacher was Bernard Grunhaus. He was the cellist of the Beaux-Arts trio. He studied with Pablo Casals. So in my lessons with Bernard Grunhaus, he would tell me what Casals would say about the cello suites. Okay, without further ado, let me get to my third cello suite in C major. And I think for this one, I'll go ahead and play through. So if you can follow along with the 6 different movements, that would be great. Again, it's Prelude, Allemande, the heavy German dance, Courant, very fast one, and the Sarabande. Then minuets and jig, 6 movements. I've been asked to tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm from Taiwan originally. My family immigrated here when I was 13 because they saw that I loved music and had a promise. So they enrolled me at the Juilliard pre-college division. So that's the pre-college version for younger kids. And among my peers were very famous people now, like Sarah Chang, a violinist you may know. And I think Hilary Hahn went through the works also. So that was my music education. In fact, I just visited my cello professor from all those years ago. 2 weeks ago, I was up in New York to see him. I remember not speaking that much English when I first came here, and he was so gentle about the way he taught me. He would show me flat fingers that was not good, and curved fingers were good. So he would say, no, yes, no, yes. So when I saw him 2 weeks ago in New York, I brought this up to him, and he still remembered all these years ago. And then my family was based in New York for a long time. And after college, I didn't do music in college, though I performed in the orchestra there. I got to Harvard and studied psychology and neuroscience. But towards the end of my college years, I decided to follow my heart. So I pursued music and went on to attend the Juilliard School for master's. And it's been a pleasure playing for you here.
Where do you live now?
I live in Winston-Salem. I'm the husband and 3 children. So that's really that's my day, right from the start on. You need it in the middle of the day. Yes.
Tell us about your instrument. When was it built?
Okay, that's a great question. The question was, tell us about my cello. So this cello was made from 2010. So it's considered a modern cello. It's made by Martin Cornelissen, a Dutch-American maker. And this cello was actually commissioned by the Juilliard School, but in the end, things fell through, so Juilliard didn't end up purchasing it. And when I was recommended to go to this maker, I visited his home and he showed me this cello. It was love at first sight. A little bit more about my instruments. I actually have another cello, a much older cello, made in 1825 in Cremona, Italy, by Presenta, a really respected maker. And that cello has a darker, deeper sound. But that cello, also being so much older, is very finicky to humidity, to temperature. And so over time, as I became a traveling musician, especially flying across time zones or parts of the earth, I really relied on this cello more. And I've grown to love it because it's very responsive to what I wanted to do. Any questions about Bach or the cello suites? Did you feel that you learned a bit more about them and would like to look them up? Listen to some recordings. I can recommend a few recordings. One of my favorite recordings is actually by a violinist. If you don't know her already, please look her up. Her name is Rachel Podger, Podger. She's a Baroque violinist from England, and she's done fabulous recordings of the violin partitas and sonatas. But she recently took on the cello pieces, and she does them just so amazingly. And being a violinist, she's able to play things a bit faster than us, so she doesn't have that much of a distance to cross. And I like her interpretation. Yes. But in terms of cello performances, I love Bibi Karai, I love Stephen Easterless. They're really a wealth of wonderful recordings. Yeah. Well, if no more questions, it's been a pleasure being here. Thank you so much. Oh, one more. Yes.
I have a question. You mentioned traveling with your instrument, and are you noticing with this climate change we're having everywhere, and especially on a day like today that is so hot and humid, does that affect your instrument?
Yes, it does. I notice I tune my instruments in between the movements, and that is because the humidity, or in dryness, or any change in humidity will make the strings go in and out of tune. Yeah. And one fun thing about the cello, If you know much about Baroque instrument playing, in the Baroque period they used gut strings, sheep gut, and then they brought them up very tightly, and so they're very thick. They have a very warm sound that now modern players are seeking. But they're also very troublesome because they go out of tune so much. The modern strings are made from steel, so the steel is reliable. So I'm dabbling in the gut string division. Of my 4 strings, the bottom 2, if you notice which ones I was tuning, they were the bottom 2. Because those 2 were the ones that went out of tune, and they were my gut strings. So they're warmer in sound, and I can demonstrate if you like